Yes, here we go again. We're live. And hi, Jack, first of all.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks to you for coming. So excited for this, actually. Um, just a little, introduction. If you are going to watch this for the first time, this is Security Break, just a little podcast of mine where I find someone, in this case, Jack, with which I have a little discussion around some recent security news and hopefully get something interesting out of it. So this time I have the pleasure to have today with me Jack Ricey there. Is that the correct way to pronounce that?
Jack Resider, thank you.
Resider. Sorry for that. Um, which probably you know already, of course, but is behind a very, very great project. Or do you call it podcast or just
Podcast, yeah.
okay? Called Darknet Diaries that I think that you can, summarize definitely better than me, Jack, if you would like.
Yeah, I create a podcast called Darknet Diaries, which goes into stories about cybercrime, and I like to do it in a like a head to toe kind of format, right? So, what's the beginning of this? What's the middle of this? What's the end of this? Right? A lot of breaking news, news that comes out today. We don't know how it ends. It just kind of comes out, and then you're like, oh well. What's going to happen next, right? And you don't know. So there's more questions than
Yeah,
answers with breaking news. But I like to wait until the news is settled down for a few years, and then I think that story is worth telling because now the people have been arrested, gone to prison, come out of prison, have their story to tell, all this kind of stuff, and we have all the answers. So that's the kind of story I like to cover.
yeah, and I think that's really better in general, just because you have the time to deep dive in what really happened and really deliver the real story behind it, right? Because most of the time, unfortunately, most of the news out there are just trying to give the news for first, and not really investing in good good information, just to give it first. uh, but what you are doing, I think it's totally on another level. Maybe it's just my personal opinion, of course, that it's what it is, but I think that there's nothing out there like what you are doing. So first of all, very thank you very much for what you are doing, because I think it's really helpful. I think it's very cool, actually, and I think it helps a lot. Like, also just making people start to be really interested in what's behind the scenes, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have caught some interest in it. I get a lot of emails and stuff where they liked computers maybe growing up, but then went to get a job in an office somewhere doing something or as a painter or something. And then they listen to the show and they're like, oh my gosh, there's so much to do in the land of cybersecurity. And I was so interested and passionate about that when I was younger. I need to get back into this. This is such an exciting place to be. And yeah, it's really fun to watch people get inspired by the show and then change careers or get into it more or whatever.
I think that's the most important part of it. Like, it's just like a topic that I'm really into. Like, we constantly say in this industry that we have a gap, right, in workforce, and we need more people. And what I think is that we need to inspire people. We need to um, drive people to be interested in this and to start studying and getting to know stuff. And again, what we are doing, I think, is the perfect example, right? Not just you know uh, um, teaching something. Maybe I think you are also teaching something, but the point is that you're not just teaching technical stuff. You are really teaching a story and describing what's the real scenario, right? What are all the consequences and really behind the scenes, or under the hood, if you like.
Yeah, I think deep down that is my goal is to teach people things, but then to kind of hide that boring lesson in the exciting story. So I don't want to just like teach you here's here's how to secure your GitHub account, but like let me tell you the story about that one time somebody didn't do it, and it created a big problem with the whole company, and it cost them millions of dollars. And that is much more exciting than here's how to do this, right? And now you walk out of that story like, dude, it's so important to secure your GitHub account, and you don't realize it until you hear why.
Yeah, exactly. In the meanwhile, I see, first people joining. Hi, Zambroid. By the way, if you don't know, it was one of the first guests in this podcast, and hopefully will be again in the future. So hi, Zambroid, and see you next time. So just a little, summary before we go into the actual news we selected for this week. Again, if this is the first time you watch this, we are live on Twitch, right? We are trying to have an episode like this every week or so. And we're going to record this and later upload this on YouTube as well. So if you're not, available tonight or this afternoon, depending on where you are, and you still want to watch the discussion together with Jack, maybe you can't really participate together with us, but still you can rewatch this on YouTube, or if you prefer on Spotify or whatever podcast platform you prefer. So see other comments there. Oh, this is definitely for you, and like all of the other comments that I think are going to happen today. So great. And I think that too, by the way. Cool.
That's great.
So I see, yeah, we're starting to have some people. So I think this is the perfect time to get into it, right? So what I'm doing is not maybe, as deep as and, probably useful as what Jack is doing, but we selected a bunch of news from the last week. So pretty recent, not the very last minute. So, and we're just going to drop one by one some of them. I'm going to introduce them, and then we just have a chit chat on it, because I think that's the the spirit of the podcast. Just have a really chill chat on it and see where we can go. So I'm gonna share my screen with the first news. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see this. And as I said, just a few words to introduce this. So the first news, hopefully, it's kind of something that is on, your kind of stories, Jack, hopefully. Mm-hmm. Basically, we had this Genesis market, right? Which was basically a store. Well, not only on the darknet, even on the clear web, but it was actually seized recently. So it's right now it's just available on the darknet, which was and is selling a lot of stolen credentials of any kind, right? Credentials, API keys, and whatsoever. It's pretty famous for this kind of job, and it's also especially famous for JavaScript script, which is basically profiling the victim's clients, so that whenever they sell the credentials, the attackers can completely disguise as the the victim, right? They don't only will have the right credentials, they will also show as the right device or from the right originating IP, and with the user agent, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that device fingerprinting was kind of a surprise to me. I did not know Genesis Market was selling that level of I don't know, credential. And if you have somebody's cookie or authentication token, that's just as well as having the whole username and password thing. I mean, there's a lot of times you can just take over a session because you have that person's cookie. Yeah. And I didn't know that was even a market for that sort of thing. I knew people are using that to get into places, but it was kind of surprising to me to see that this is actually being traded and sold And yeah, and I'm not sure the level of how it is, right? If it's just random users, like here's 1,000 users from this site, and here you go, you can log into different sites using their fingerprint. That's what they're calling it here. Or if
Well,
it's like, no,
apparently,
we have a specific user, you can log in as that person, like, you know, a celebrity or something. I don't know.
I think the last thing you said is the case because I'm just quoting here on the article. Hopefully, it's readable for everyone. Basically, they were selling each account, like private accounts, for 70 cents, or through hundreds of dollars for something like online banking services. So I think they were specific about this pair of credentials, not just selling a lot,
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of stuff.
It's
It's
interesting
not really
Spotify's on the
clear.
list there because you could take like thousands of Spotify users, log in as them, and then listen to your, you know, music, and you can be monetized for that. So that's a
Whoa. I was not really thinking
well,
about that,
I wouldn't
but
imagine you're making more than 7 cents though. That's interesting that they're like, okay, for 70 cents, you got to buy one account, and then you're only going to get 1 cent worth of Spotify streams. So you really need like seven or more Spotify albums before it really works, I guess.
yeah, I mean, Spotify is just an example. I will say probably the same with any other similar platform. I don't know, like even YouTube is doing, or even Twitch, right, is doing monetization, and depending on how many accounts you can put, listening or watching to you, you can make some money. I'm not sure what's the value of each single account in this case, but
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely an interesting scenario.
Yeah,
I was
and
not
see, it's
really.
just this paragraph here that gives me like 20 more questions than we even have time. We're not even at the news part of this story yet. This is just like, you know,
Yeah.
background for what Genesis Market even is. And already I'm like, wait a minute, how are they getting Spotify fingerprints? How do they know what this user the user agent is and the IP addresses of the users logging into Spotify? It's just such a crazy idea that somebody has this data. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe
And
there's so maybe there's I remember there's this time where I've seen a website that kind of tried to identify all the things you're logged into right now. Are you logged into Facebook? Are you logged into Twitter? Are you logged into Spotify? Yes, okay, because you have that authentication token somewhere in your browser. And then it's like, okay, well, now I know this is your user agent. I don't need to know your password. I just know this is your what you look like to Spotify. And so maybe that's the thing. Maybe that's how it went.
well, that could be the case. And I'm also thinking another thing, which we mentioned multiple times in previous episodes. The point is that this is what it is, declared on the store, right? Which is something that basically, a criminal wrote down. Like, I'm thinking, should we just trust whatever they say just because they write that in
Yeah.
in there, or they just put a bunch of social networks and important kind of accounts just so you are interested in buying, right?
Yeah, I know this market has a reputation system as well where you
Yeah.
can see like, yeah, I did buy this and this was authenticated, authentic data that I bought from them. So you do see that from the sellers.
Absolutely. And reputation, I think that's the actual point about the news itself, right? Because so this was just the preamble. The point about the market is that it was actually sold apparently to someone else, right? So we are talking about a very spoofy and definitely illegal thing, but that is sponsored like a proper store, right? With customers that are buying and they are doing marketing, basically advertising and everything. And right now the news is talking about one of the admins basically of the market, that is called Genesis Store here, or at least that's the account name, which declared on last day of June, we're going to sell the store to someone else. Okay, so someone else is basically buying all of the business, because that's what it is, if you ask me. with the store itself, the database with all of the stolen credentials that they are selling, and even their software, right? Even that profiling script that made them so famous.
Hmm.
And now I really want your opinion on this, Jack, because I'm really interested in it. Always stressing out about this stuff that we on the bright side, let's say, work right to go against these people right here, and at the same time, they are doing business. They are doing business in the same way the legit businesses are basically, um, doing their stuff. So, okay, of course, they are doing pretty much illegal stuff, but it's so much evolved from, I don't know, the last 10 years or so, or even 20 years, that now it's really so much organized. There are so many different actors involved. There is selling of businesses, like when you sell like a startup or something, right? This really, drives me crazy. I don't know what you think about it, but
Yeah. I mean,
it's
so the thing you said earlier was that part of this site was seized, or another similar site to this was seized by, sounds like law enforcement.
yeah.
And it's funny how, whoa, like the owner of the site, is probably feeling that heat of like, oh, we're getting seized. This is a great time to sell this site and get out of town. And then whoever's coming in has got to be absolutely crazy to be like, oh, you're being chased by the FBI or whatever. I'll buy it from you. And so maybe it's not even that. Maybe the FBI has bought it from them and just to kind of get more information out of them, but isn't going to pay for it or something. There's a whole bunch of unknowns here. And it's going to be interesting to see if we do figure out any of what happened here. If it who would buy such a crazy thing? Kim.com or something like that.
Absolutely. Actually, this is another very interesting aspect. We know from similar previous news, right? That of course, law enforcement are also trying to completely take control of forums on the darknet or even stores like this, so that they keep it running, so they can track the customers, right? So the people who are also clients that who are buying the credential and then maybe are reusing the malware and so on and so forth. So it can definitely be possible that it's actually like the FBI or someone else behind this, and like can be possible. But now I'm asking myself, why should they even say it? Why should they even say that someone else is taking
Yeah.
control of
That's a
this?
good question too. Like you could just say that to, throw the feds off your trail and say, "Oh, we've sold it, and now we're leaving." When really they didn't. They just kept it, and now I don't know. I mean, that could be a false flag just all by itself for some reason.
Yeah, yeah. So of course, probably we will never know, or maybe Jack, you will find this, in 6 months or next year, and will
Yeah,
tell us the real story behind it.
I'll keep
But
an eye on
it's
it.
yeah, definitely do that, and I'll wait for any work that you will do on this. But it's really interesting what are the different possibilities that could be behind this. uh, like the normal one, like if we have just to trust the guy from the store, it's basically that someone was proposing like an amount of money that is definitely higher than the normal business, right, that they are doing. Or maybe they're, as you said, they're just scared because the law enforcements are behind them,
Hmm.
and they want to get away of it. I'm not sure that's enough, because still, if someone is tracking you, you really have to disappear from the net completely, which is not always the case, or maybe never the case. And we also mentioned in previous episodes that there are multiple ways, like law enforcement can track these people, even if they do a very tiny error in posting something on another social with the same handle. or something like that, or maybe just mentioning something that only someone behind this can know about, right? So that could be another another scenario, probably. But yeah. Now I'm actually reading that, yeah, law enforcement actually seized a few months ago just some domains, right? So basically the DNS names that were um, uh, used to publish the store on the clear web, right? So that doesn't mean that automatically that they also had any control on the infrastructure, right? It could be, but doesn't say that. And it
Yeah,
appears that the
I
store
would
was
stay
actually
away
running.
from this site either as an admin, as a buyer, as a seller. Like it just seems like, okay, I'm gonna find somewhere else to get my device fingerprinting from.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if you're a client, if you're a customer, the problem is that there is no much competition for this stuff. Of course, there is some, right? But usually, a website like this become very famous because they're good at it, right? And it's not that easy that you can find someone else doing the same stuff or selling the same quality, let's say, because you can sell credentials, but they have to be, they have to work. Otherwise, you are buying nothing. So I'm not sure how much competition this store actually had, so that the clients can just go to someone else. But maybe it's true that it's good for them if they look for something else. So what else is in there? Let me see. So yeah, there's all of different kind of credentials. So device fingerprints, as we mentioned before, they were profiling cookies, IP addresses, time zones, device info, and maybe we didn't mention this before, but all of this is very important whenever you want to disguise as someone else, because there are detection mechanisms out there that are tracking not only the credentials, but from where you are authenticating or which device you are using to authenticate. And if that's not something that the infrastructure have seen before, right, they can trigger alerts, they can prevent you to authenticate, right? And these are, recent defensive mechanism that are pretty common. And the fact that they were, or they are still able to completely profile a device like this, it's very, very interesting. So cookies as well, that's the software itself that I think is probably the most valuable thing they are selling to be able to profile the devices. And then credentials, personas. So I think they were actually, not only profiling but also creating a database of all of the people and the related IPs, devices, and so on and so forth. So I see a comment here. Just show. So Zembride is saying it happened in the past that people selling those business came back with new similar businesses somewhere else. Will it be possible?
That's a good point. Yeah, there's you redefine yourself. You make it look like you're closing the door here, and then you come back again. I mean, the thing is that are you going to know that's the same person coming back, right? Hey, it's me, Al from Genesis Market. I'm back with Exodus Market. Are you sure you're really the same guy? So you kind of have to take your name with you if you're going to be reinventing something.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if you want to get the same customers you had before, right?
Yeah,
Otherwise,
and
you're just going to lose them.
This is the double-edged sword of all, criminal activity on the darknet. Is you want to establish a name for yourself so that people trust you and know who you are. But at the same time, as soon as you become known, you become known to the feds, and now they're trying to hunt you. So you kind of have to play this game of, I want to be underground and not mainstream, all the time on the dark net so that nobody knows who I am, but the people who do know who I am know who I am. Like, it's so strange.
Well, definitely it's not I would say the best way to live your life, right? Always under disguise, always trying to hide, let's say, at least from certain people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just you make so much money out of it that they just don't think about it probably most of the time. Or they have other kind of drivers, which could be possible as well. Or against the system or something. So it will also be interesting to see, what kind of motivation is behind why you as a cyber criminal start to do something like this. I'm sure that there will be so many different, kind of stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you also covered something already about that.
All right, what's the next story we got here?
Yeah, I think that's perfect to just go to the next story. So just a few seconds before we move, I would just want to remind everyone that so again, if this is the first time you watch us, we are live on Twitch. This episode will be re-uploaded on YouTube and Spotify later. And if again, if you're not hit that follow button, please do that if you want to support the podcast and maybe convince someday Jack to return. Otherwise, I think we're gonna lose him very, very soon. Anyway, next news here. So, of course, slightly different, and this is something that we didn't cover so far. We're talking about containers, basically container technology. Research from German university published a paper basically where they analyzed a very high number actually of public containers. Where's the actual number? More than 300,000 image of containers that were public in Docker Hub and similar platforms. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, containers are, let's say, a kind of virtualization technology that is trying to virtualize the operating system of a machine. So you can, as a developer, you can provide just all of the individual elements of the application you want to develop in a very quick and easy way, right? So it's a very I would say handy way to handle software, right? And something like Docker Hub is basically the GitHub alternative for containers, right? So anyone can create an account and publish its own software inside containers and make it public, so anyone can download it, modify it, or reuse it depending on the type of application. The point is that similarly to, let's say, normal software that is uploaded on GitHub as well, most of the time, or just very often, developers are not caring too much about the security of those containers, right? Apparently, actually not apparently, definitely, even if you are putting code in a container, that doesn't mean automatically that that's secure, right? So you still have to care about any hard-coded credentials, any secrets that you are putting there, any sensitive data, right, that you are plotting together with the container. And the research here just make it clear that close to I would say 10% of the analyzed Dockers were actually containing working credentials or API keys or whatever that can be reused to just authenticate to a cloud service or anything that is needed for the application.
Again, yeah, we've seen a lot of this kind of attack before, where we've got like Google dorking, where people just search for passwords right on the internet, and then when we saw GitHub, people putting their code up on the internet. In GitHub, there's a lot of hard-coded credentials, same with AWS containers. And so this is a very similar style of let's go look for passwords in Docker Hub. And I haven't thought of this myself, but I'm absolutely not surprised that this is a problem. Since it's a problem in those other places, it should be a problem here as well. And it's kind of fascinating that, you know, if this person wasn't a researcher, right? If they didn't call themselves that particular word, and they're just a normal person, hey, I'm just a guy just looking around on the internet. And well, what are you doing in my Docker image? Oh, I was just looking to see if you had any passwords. Get out of there, man. Why are you looking in my Docker? Like, it just, you sound like a jerk. But no, I'm a researcher. I'm a student at a university. I'm doing this for research purposes. Oh, well, then come on in. We want to see what you find. It's interesting how the motive is really the playing factor here in this whole story to me, because if you're like, oh no, I work for a Eastern European cyber gang, and I'm going to do this quote unquote research, and I found 18,000 credentials. Oh, this is great. Oh, yeah. It's all, but it all comes down to your intention and your motive of what you're doing in there.
Absolutely. You know, I think this is, of course, a personal opinion, but you know, I think this is related to even terminology, right? There are a lot of ethical, right, hackers out there. So just if you call yourself, you know, ethical in some way, apparently you are free to do anything. You can publish, I don't know, proof of concepts for vulnerability exploits on GitHub, but you are a researcher, you are an ethical hacker, so that's fine. If you know, an attacker does that, that's definitely seen on another way, right? It's someone spreading malicious code, not proof of concept, right? So the way you call it change the perception of it, or at least for most people, which is really interesting.
Yeah, it's got to be interesting for whoever, you know, this person's professor is too. Like, hey, professor, I'd like to do this project. Well, hold on a second. This might get sticky, but so be careful with these parameters, right? And then they come back and they say, okay, professor, this is what I found. A lot of passwords. I have them in my computer here. Here, you can take a look. No, I don't want to see those passwords. Why? Okay, all right, let's just, you know, give you an A and close the book. No, I want to publish it to Bleeping Computer. I want to tell them how I did this. No, don't put my name in there. Okay. Like there's got to be some tough questions that professor had to answer of like, oh yeah, go forward, publish this to the world, put all the passwords in there, or like where's the line of like how much do you disclose, which Docker images had it in it, which passwords were in there. Like it is interesting on like where is the sensitivity here. Like right now this is just a beacon for anyone who wants to, you know, cause chaos. Oh wow, look, I'll just go in there, it sounds like fertile ground. Go in there and they'll steal a whole bunch of passwords. And it's because this student told him about it. But it's at the same time that hopefully the bright side is saying, oh, man, I think my stuff is up on there. I need to go in and clean it out. So I'm hoping more good comes out of this than bad, but it may not.
I don't know if we will ever know. But yeah, some good can definitely came out of it, right? The fact that I really hope that this will spread some awareness. So maybe someone is just thinking that, oh, well, I'm using container, so I'm okay on the security aspect. Well, no, that's not the case. That's not even the goal of it. And still, you still have to care about your code. You still have to care about what you are publishing online. And since you mentioned that, there's the very last quote in the article that says, since the researchers have some ethical limitations, they didn't reuse the credentials. They didn't test the credentials against the actual services. Well, thank you very much. So that's the very, very bare minimum, I will say. That's the very last thing that they didn't do. And thankfully, I would say.
Yeah, well, I hope Docker Hub sees this and has like a brainstorm session on how do we prevent this. This is what did it say? 10% of all Docker Hub images have exposed credentials.
9.5 or something like that.
Yeah, that's a high percent. And so is Docker Hub on the hook for any of this? Like, could they be scanning? What's the tool this person used to scan? Could they just put that in automatically to scan people's stuff, as
Before
they
it's
get
published,
uploaded?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, you left your secrets in here. We're not going to publish this till you get them out, or you sign this agreement that it's okay. Like, they could put something in there. If this person can scan 300,000 images, or what was it? What a data set of 300,000 Docker images.
Here it is.
If this person can do it, why can't Docker Hub do it? And if Docker Hub can do it, then why can't it just be put into Docker Hub CLI to do it even before it gets to Docker Hub, right? Like let's use this knowledge to squash it completely.
Yeah.
And whose responsibility would that be? I mean, we're clearly not doing good as Docker hosts out there. So it should be the technology creator. Say, hey, wait, hold on. We've got a problem in our system here. Docker keeps exposing stuff. We got to fix that.
Okay. Well, the responsibility is a very, tough topic, I would say, which very frequently came out on this podcast. You're saying that maybe, Docker Hub as the service provider should be responsible, right? So I'm letting you publish something on my platform. I should be responsible also to control that you are not publishing some weird stuff. Right?
Not fully responsible, but partially responsible, right? Yeah. It's kind of like securing the road. The car maker has to be safe. The roads have to be safe. The drivers have to be safe. There has to be police out there. Like, all that comes together to make the roads safe. And so can Docker Hub do more? And are they, and then choosing not to? Or do they know they can do more and then choose not to? Are they being negligent in any way? Because they're like, we're libertarian here. You could do whatever you want. You want to publish all your passwords? That's our policy. We let you choose it. We don't care what kind of harmful, hateful, or damaging or private stuff you're exposing. Go for it. There's got to be something that they've got to think about morally over there of like, what are we hosting? Are we cool hosting it? Are we putting people at risk? And there's got to be some sort of privacy and security team that's thinking about this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think so. Well, this, if you just look at this article, this is definitely, let's say, putting up maybe not really good reputation on Docker Hub in general. So I think there will be at least some response to this, right? At least to, again, show that the company is doing something about it. Maybe they cannot, I'm sure that, they cannot prevent it completely, right? But they can surely do something about it. They can improve the awareness of the people, just showing an alert whenever you want to, commit something, right? Or publish something. Or you can actually proactively scan the container itself, and if there's something that you think it's a sensitive data or credential or something, block the upload and say, oh wait, there's something in here, double check it, right? And just when you're sure that this is fine for you, you will take full responsibility, signing here that it is okay to publish that. I think they can definitely do something like that. I know that GitHub, right, like in the last years, has done a lot of new features regarding this sort of stuff, assisting the developer even with the security side of it.
Yeah, there's some cool integrations into GitHub where you can do like unit testing and verification of code so that things look good. I'm not sure all the details there, but then you see these little check marks at the top of certain GitHub projects where it's like, this has passed here and it's passed here and it's passed here. And that kind of gives you the sense of, okay, somebody's programming this effectively. And it would be nice to see maybe a plugin like that where, it passed that's credential free. There's just a little add-on that you can put into your thing if you want it. But again, I don't think users are going to grab it unless they're like, they care or they're smart enough or whatever. And I bet there's a high number of these that are just like test systems where it's like, yeah, there's a test database, it's a dev database, it's not really, you know, official information. But, you know, if there's thousands of these, even 1% of them being production is hundreds of them now.
Well, I think it's specified somewhere. I cannot find it, like the info right now, but they did something to double check that those credentials they found were actually, you know, active credentials, first of all, and that could not be associated with test accounts and something like that. So that percentage, like the 9.5%, it seems to be very, you know, usable and active accounts for production stuff, which is very, very high, right? So there were more than that, more than those, you know, 9.5%, but that is the very, you know, juicy stuff. That's the, you know, the wrong stuff that should not be there. And I just wanted to show once again a comment from Zambroid saying, "This is a revenge from a legacy sysadmin who hates containers." and I understand that as a former sysadmin, containers were something that, you know, blown my mind completely. I was more into just the, you know, old virtual machines, and I was saying, what's this stuff? What do you want me to do? What should I configure? I don't know.
Yeah, so it takes a while to wrap your head around this sort of thing. And if you don't get it, and then you see people who also don't get it, and they're publishing their keys, like, hey, listen, I don't get it as much as you don't get it, but you're not doing it right.
But this is wrong, right? Yeah. I can tell that this is wrong. So definitely. Okay, cool. So I don't know if you have any other thoughts about this.
No, I'm ready for the next one.
Definitely. So I just, you know, gonna drop the link on the chat. So if you want to read this yourself, guys, please do that. And if we're missing something, please let us know. Because we can miss something. Anyone can miss something, but the point is to, you know, every one of us read a little more, understand a little more, so that we can also share between each other, and we all get to know more, right? So next story here, and we're still you know, talking about source code, and this time we are also talking about GitHub that we mentioned earlier, and the other, you know, part of the puzzle is rootkit this time. So there is this pretty famous rootkit called Black Lotus. So again, if you don't know what a rootkit is, in very simple words, is basically a kind of malware, right, that is affecting a machine even below the operating system. So instead of addressing the operating system like the probably 99% of malware out there, it's trying to bypass, right, the access to the hardware, and, you know, in that case, it can also bypass potentially security measures on the operating system, which are, you know, the most common kind of security measure you will find on a computer or any other connected device.
Well, they're calling this one a bootkit, not a rootkit.
Right. Well, it's also mentioned rootkit somewhere in the article itself, but I think the point is that this is trying to bypass, you know, Microsoft security solutions on, in fact, the bootloader, right? So preventing to load a malicious software before running the actual operating system. That should be kind of the case.
This affects the BIOS specifically, and the BIOS has been renamed in recent years to UEFI. It's just a modern form of a BIOS.
Yeah, it's basically like I would say the firmware, right, of you know, the hardware, right, behind the operating system. And this specific malware called Black Lotus, apparently it's working on the very last versions of Windows 11, right, with all of the security controls in place. It was exploiting a vulnerability that was fixed at some point change to another, vulnerability later. And the second one, right? Even if Microsoft actually published a fix for it, it didn't automatically apply to all of the Windows clients out there for some reason, and specify that if you want to be, solving this issue, you as a user have to manually apply the fix, which is actually a little, complicated. And if you don't do it, right and correctly, you can actually, mess up with the operating system at all, which of course make users do not apply it, because I don't want to mess up with my computer, right? And who
Yeah, I
cares
mean,
about security?
yeah, the steps to fix this are convoluted and confusing because it's a UEFI fix, and that takes. I mean, it's almost like open brain surgery, right? You got to get into the heart of the machine and do it. You get when you're updating that, it's a weird thing because if it does go wrong, it's not in the normal Windows updates. It's a special. Okay, we got to do this once every few years kind of updates thing, not every patch Tuesday.
Yeah, I would say that the average user is never doing something like this. Like, I'm thinking about, a consumer, right, at home with this um, you know private PC. No one is
Yeah,
going to update the firmware like in a lifetime.
yeah.
Maybe in a company that's
I feel like the
could be
only
the
time
case.
I've had to update the UEFI firmware is when I got some hardware that it wouldn't work with, right? So mining Bitcoin, for example, I had to get some crazy devices in there. And it's like, yeah, your system's not compatible unless you're on this firmware update. Oh my gosh, okay. So you got to get on there.
Yeah, but that's let's say you add a driver for it. Like, I want to reach this goal, so I have to update my firmware for some reason. But again, the average user who is just, I don't know, surfing the web or using the Office package or something on their computer, why they should even think about, updating the firmware? What's that? I don't want to know what's that. I don't want to. Again, if it says this could, break your computer, okay, I'm not gonna touch this, right? I
Yeah,
need
so
it for work.
all this is to say that the Black Lotus affects that part of the computer. And even though it's patched, it seems to be still for sale out there. How much was this going for?
$5,000 or something. Yeah,
Five
here it
thousand
is.
dollars for this malware.
Yeah, which is, it's not that high. I think, because it's a very, again, works on the very recent version of Windows, right? So it's something that will work no matter what. And we know that Windows is basically the most common platform out there,
Oh, well, the
especially
other thing
for
I
personal
wondered
computers.
is any antivirus scanning the UEFI subsystem?
So there are some controls in place that are specifically bypassed by this malware. Let me find where it's quoted here.
Yeah, I
Um,
understand that the Black Lotus was saying when this was for sale, yeah, no antivirus will detect this once it's installed. And I
yeah,
just wonder if any antivirus is even looking in there, if it's possible, because it might be so far down in the firmware. I know from Windows you can change the UEFI. You don't have to do it from like pushing F2 or whatever while it's booting up. You can
yeah.
actually do it from within Windows. So if Windows can see this data and config, then why can't antivirus see it? And if antivirus can see it, why can't they see this particular virus? That's an interesting
So
one.
I'm not like sure 100%, but I think the case is that whenever you use this malware and install it, right, you are again bypassing the control for the specific antivirus that is installed on the operating system, right? So basically, you're just preventing to be detected. Now, if there are multiple, antiviruses that are running, booting from a USB drive or something, right? So not using the operating system at all, just scanning the disk. And I think potentially those can actually find it. But the point is that you as the user have to, think, okay, I want to scan my my disk drive from, not even running my operating system, just to be sure 100%. And again, who is really doing that? Or you have already some kind of alert that is saying to you, okay, something weird is happening, okay, and maybe you think, okay, let's do something like this. Otherwise, if you have no detection at all from the very beginning, you're not going to run anything like that. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. So I think the problem here is on, the detection side. If you proactively search for it, you can probably do it, but making the operating system automatically say, oh, there's something weird here, but I cannot do anything about it, you have to do it, because this is preventing the operating system to do anything. Again, the user have to have the skills and to have the knowledge, to do that, right? To insert a USB drive or install the USB drive with the antivirus software and so on and so forth. So now the point about this software, right? Because this was not actually the subject of the story. The subject of the story is that the source code for this malware that is around from some time, it was now published on GitHub, right? So the source code is now open source right there. It's not complete, no. It's specified that it's missing some parts of the original malware, but the bootkit part of it, so the thing that is bypassing operating system controls, is there and can be basically be reused by anyone else. You don't have even to pay those $5,000 now. It's there. Just download it and reuse it, combine with any other malware, or for research reason, even if you want, or even other criminals can start to reuse this. So we're gonna see this used more and more from now on. That's the even worse part of this story, right?
Yeah. I mean, the thing I like to do on my show is to figure out not so much this proof of concept of, okay, here's this thing that affects the bootloader on your machine, but show me a story where someone did this in the wild and it made a big impact. And I'm curious, that scenario, why would somebody use this? Who's used this? What group has done this? What have they done from this? Because I think that's a missing part I have. But yeah, that's I'm curious what stories are involved with this.
Yeah, and not only that, like you mentioned, who is going to reuse this, right? And what kind of impact they will have. But what about who actually published this and why they did it? Like that's another question that I have on my mind, because technically, you make money if you just sell it, right? And this is one of the, I would say, high-end malwares out there that anyone wants, anyone on the criminal side will pay for it, right? And maybe even someone from the research side to dissect the malware, to analyze the malware, could technically buy it. So why would you actually make it public? This for me is pretty interesting. There should be a reason behind it, right? There should be a motive. I don't know.
I think so. Now the full Bootkit was not published; it was just parts of it.
Yeah.
So that also adds some mystery to it, of like, why wasn't it the full thing? Why is it only some of it? Does it mean that whoever was the author didn't have it, or the author sold it to someone and then they only were able to publish the part they had? It could also be, so I mean, one theory is like, one of the customers of this bought it and didn't like doing business with this person. Or maybe there's a rival malware gang out there that's doing, White Lotus malware. And they're like, well, if we publish Black Lotus, we can then get more people to buy White Lotus because this thing's burned.
Yeah, Yeah, that's an interesting, way of looking at this. And it could be the case, right? Maybe they, again, a rival gang just stole it and it's publishing it so that, they can just take the market out of the rivals, right?
Yeah,
Definitely that could be the case. I will probably expect it to be specified somewhere, here this shit, and I can do a better malware if you just follow this link for just $100 or something, right? But who knows? Maybe tomorrow there will be a new page on the GitHub saying something like that. We
yeah,
don't know yet.
yeah. It's interesting when stuff like this hits. I remember when we had that NSA trove show up, and Shadow Brokers was like, "Oh, we've got a whole bunch of NSA exploits," and they published one of
Right.
them, Eternal Blue, but it was just kind of like some esoteric code of some kind. It was difficult to understand what was going on. It wasn't until a security researcher took that, reversed it, understood it, and then wrote their own version of that malware. Like, here's a proof of concept of how you could use Eternal Blue. A few days after that, that's when North Korea grabbed that proof of concept and then launched WannaCry,
Right.
which hit ransomware across the UK. And so, yeah, is this going to have something similar where, okay, here's part of a code. Some researcher's going to pick this up and say, okay, well, we've understood Black Lotus. Here's the proof of concept on how to use it, and then North Korea is like, thank you very much. We're going to go ransomware half the country.
Yeah, like that's perfect. Thank you. The point is that there it's all of this process, making the malware, selling it, at some point making it even free and public. It's making it very very easy for anyone, even without any very high skills, to use this kind of sophisticated and very high end effective malware.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen that even with anything as a service. You have DDoS as a service, you have ransomware as a service, anything that technically it's preparing all of the software, all of the processes, all of the attack on your behalf. You just have to pay for it, or you maybe just have to do a little part of the kill chain. Maybe you just have to deliver the malware, but the malware was
Mm-hmm.
written by someone else, right? And maybe that malware was actually done first by a researcher, then just maybe tiny modified by someone else. But it's involving so many actors out there for all of those kind of attacks. I wonder who was the one developing this Black Lotus malware. Probably is not really involved anymore in this stuff, right?
Mm.
You don't know how many hands were touching this.
Yeah, what's also interesting, I believe that in the GitHub repo is that the first half of the description is all in Russian.
All right.
It begins out
Yeah.
in Russian. Um, the I know that there's a lot of penetration testers that love these kind of articles because when they go on, into a new, if they're having a new engagement this week and they're having trouble getting into someone's computer or into some system, they're going to find something that's fresh that just hit the streets, and then try to figure out a way to use this exploit on their, you know, a mission that they're doing right now, right? And some of that stuff they like to be really cutting edge with, just because they're like, hey, it's out in the open. It's not like I, did some 0-day on you. It was published and it's there. And I love those kind of penetration testers where they're just so tuned in to the latest threats. It's amazing to see them put this stuff into action.
And hopefully, in case they do it, they are, let's say, in the scope of their engagement, right? I
Yeah.
really like always think about people who engage penetration testers and do not really give them any scope. So if you don't know what we are talking about, basically a penetration tester simulate an attack, right, and try to test your systems to understand how secure they are. But you also give them a scope for the engagement, meaning that you're telling, okay, you are permitted officially to test this system, but only in this way and only using, I don't know, this list of stuff, but not something else. So it really depends on the scope, what the penetration tester can do. And I wonder if there's a row saying, okay, you can download stuff from GitHub that was published just yesterday and randomly run on our system. Because again, are you checking that software? Does it do anything else that you are not really interested in, right?
That's always a really fascinating line that I always wonder too, of like, okay, if you're going to come put malware in our network and try to attack us, where are you getting this malware from? Is this got its own rootkit in it? Did you look at the source code? Is it something that's going to give China complete access to our data center?
Right?
And like, did you just download this off of the darknet? Like, where are you getting this? And so, yeah, if you're grabbing this code and trying to put it in place, be careful. Like, I don't understand who's allowing this and who isn't. And when you have like bug bounties, that's like, okay, go ahead, try to attack our system, see if it's vulnerable. They're not saying things like that. They're not saying like, okay, only do stuff that's in, Metasploit. Do not do anything that's just like some Russian forum. And yeah, it's a weird mix out there of where that line is.
Absolutely. That's even worse probably, right? Because you are opening your system to anyone interested in testing it. And you have to be very strict, I think, about the scope if you specify it at all, right? That's the case of maybe the security.txt file, right? Technically, by best practices, you should put this text file on your system saying, okay, you can do some tests on my systems, but you can do just this kind of stuff, right? Or you can target, again, just this list of domains, this list of applications, and so on and so forth. But not everyone does that. Actually, I think that still today, very few organizations do that, right? So you're basically opening your system to anyone out there using anything.
Yeah. This, I think, is it's a wild world out there.
Definitely, it's tough.
I remember one time I was troubleshooting a firewall, and
okay.
I had a tough time like figuring out what the commands are to like get this problem fixed or whatever. And I found some Polish website, it was not even in English, and I was like copying and pasting commands from that website into my production firewall. my coworker's like, where'd you get that script? I was like, oh, it's from some Russian dude speaking on a Polish website. Why are you putting this kind of code in here? Like, well, I don't know what the answer is. And yeah, but it becomes a weird thing of like, where are you getting this code to put into our production environment? It is odd.
Like, I'm wondering, what do you put in the documentation in that case? Okay, download stuff from this Polish site.
Yeah.
Then
it's
blindly
weird.
apply it.
Yeah. That happens.
You're making someone blowing their mind.
It happens. You're doing it. Don't deny it. You've taken stuff off of GitHub. You've taken stuff off of Stack Exchange and just been like, let's give it a try, YOLO, and it worked. And you're like, okay, this code works. Don't touch it. And you didn't examine it. You don't know what it does, but it works.
Yeah, been there, done that. I admit it. Especially I would say when you start working, but it happens also even when when you have a certain seniority and still you are too tired to still try to find a new solution or something. It happens. You should not be do that, of course, but we are humans, right? And that's probably the reason why so many attacks works out there, because we are vulnerable by design, right?
Yeah. Okay. So the tip here is to have peer review on all the stuff you're doing at work.
Right.
Run it
Always
by someone
have
else.
a colleague which is looking at your back, right? What's that stuff? Remove it right now. You're fired. No, that's cool. So if you're okay, I will probably move to the next one. What do you
Let's
think?
go. Yeah. What do we
Yeah.
got?
We got a very interesting thing, but please, if you are still watching after, what is it, more than 1 hour now we really deserve that follower out there. Okay, please, 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 thank you very much. That said, new story. This is we're reaching the end of the episode, but this is kind of, I think it's pretty simple, right?
We have
Especially
another
compared
story
to the,
after this still. It's not the last story though.
it's not the last one. There's
No.
still something. So
Okay.
no, stay with us. But this, I think this will be quick. It's not, it's easier than the previous ones. I thought this was interesting because of very detail in this attack. So the clocked Ursa, right? This is the name they assigned to this tractor. That is also the same behind the more famous SolarWinds attack. Is running basically a phishing attack against some diplomats and some embassies, right? And instead of, usually when you do something like this, you try to disguise as a colleague, you ask for, access to some system because you are in an urgency or something. But this time they actually decided to do something definitely different, and also I will say a little weird, right? Uh, there is, a specific diplomat who was selling his used car, right? And have a flyer, um, you know, uh, talking about it. Okay, I'm selling my car for this price. Come see it, whatever. And they, this group took this flyer, modified it, inserted a malicious link in it, and started sending emails to diplomats and other people working in embassies, right? So in a sort of bulk attack. It's not really targeted to a single person, but it's more targeting an entire, let's say, organization, right? So, Diplomat X is selling his car. Maybe you could be interested that just because you know him, because you're working with him, or it's just something that you heard about because you are in the same organization. I thought this was very unique, right? In the kind of um, how do you call it?
It's a
It's the
creative attack, right? You don't think of this as how you're doing it, where, oh, yeah, there was a link to buy a car. I know this guy. And when I click the link, it takes me to malware. And then you're like, wait, are you giving me the malware? No, I didn't even make that flyer. Here's the one I made, and it's one letter different, or whatever the case is. That is a very creative attack. And this in the military, it's the team that is the more creative one is often the winner. And it's interesting to see how creativity plays such a place in the battlefield, whether it's the digital battlefield or the real battlefield. It really comes down to how much more creative can we get, and it is interesting to just watch the different ideas form here, and it also speaks to how the lengths of some of these attackers will go to be able to track a diplomat to such a degree that they're like, oh, we see that they're making a flyer to sell their car, and we know that they're going to be giving it out to people that are close to that person. So let's get into that. How do we get into that stream of communication? And that's a trusted stream if you can. Yeah, it's quite the steps. It's quite the work to get infiltrated into that level of phishing attack, I suppose.
yeah, absolutely. Like I'm wondering what was the reasoning process, right? Okay, we need to make up a phishing email. What do we put in there? Okay, and they started thinking, oh, maybe we can do this, maybe we can do this. And at some point someone is searching the guy on internet or something and finds the flyer. Oh, the guy is selling a car, maybe we can use this. Like,
Mm.
I wonder if this is some like random genius uh, intuition, right? Or they really thought, okay, this is the best way to reach our goal. We're gonna find if the guy is selling something, right? And just because it's something that you will not expect to be a phishing email, because usually they are different. Usually the object of the email is totally different. They are talking about, I don't know, uh, move this amount of money in case of the, back business email compromise kind of attack, or okay, I need to access this system, can you do that for me, or something. Now the object is, oh, I'm selling a car, do you want to see more photos of it? And then you click on the link just to see those photos. It's very, very unique, and yeah, definitely creative, which is probably the best way to reach certain goals. In this case, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
like, it's probably the same even for penetration tester or red teamers out there, right? When you have something like a scope where you can do whatever you want, you can physically introduce the to the buildings or whatever. You really have to be creative. I don't know, you disguise as you know workers that needs to adjust or to fix some light in the building or something, just to access the buildings. Creativity is something that maybe it's not really mentioned very often in job descriptions or something, but it's probably a very important skill in this industry, I would say. What do you think?
Yeah, this one it just has so much finesse and fine details and this covert. It's scary just to think that somebody is going through these lengths to get into the diplomats of Ukraine.
Yeah, like, it's clear how they really want to reach that specific target, right? They are not even, targeting a single person. Maybe they are. It's also specified in the article, right? This is something that the people who really receive this email will be willing to even share this internally, right? Maybe they are not interested, but say, oh, there was my colleague who was looking to buy a car. Maybe I will share this to my colleague, right? And they
Yeah.
are basically spreading the attack even more internally. Uh, this could be one of the reasons why they took this kind uh, of strategy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something very personal, or the user can fall for it or not, but something very generic like this, it can spread multiple times, can be shared and reshared so many times inside the company that you probably have a higher chance to actually get to the real target at some point. Or maybe you don't have a real target, maybe you need just some level of access to the embassy network in general, right? And eventually you will have one single user. Maybe you will, find a way to privilege escalate, right? To basically have a higher level of access to the system, and that's all. You're not really targeting a person rather than the organization itself. Maybe that could be the case.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a real interesting one.
Yeah, clear. So there's is there. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, right? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think
So,
so.
if that's okay, we can just go to the very end of the episode with the last story. So bear with us. I think, like, if that was not clear yet, the last in any episode, the last story is the one that makes the title for the episode, right? So this episode's title is Darknet Unveils ChatGPT Evil Twin. And that's pretty much the story that we're going to talk about. The thing is that, everyone talks about ChatGPT and about chatbots and artificial intelligence nowadays, because pretty much everyone is even using it, since ChatGPT is public out there. And if anyone is using it for any kind of work, even the criminals can use it, of course. And why not? So there are two different events, two different facts that are described in the article itself. First one is that in some forum on the darknet, there are people writing guidelines, guiding other people on how to use ChatGPT or similar, right, tools in order to run malicious stuff. So for an example here, in this screenshot, this guy is suggesting, you can use ChatGPT to basically create the phishing email body for you. Maybe English is not your, English or whatever language is not your first language. You can just prompt to ChatGPT, okay, please write me something like this in this language, okay? And they are also suggesting ways to bypass the security controls, right? Because technically, again, ChatGPT in this case has a list of security controls that prevent to, run illegal activities. And that's the reason why we reached the second fact. Criminals are actually training and creating their own chatbots, their own artificial intelligence, basically in the same way ChatGPT was created, right? So they are taking the same under the hood technology that is GPT. They are training the chatbot with, as they say, a repository of malwares. So the chatbot learns how to write something like that, and put no controls at all. So whoever can use it and just ask whatever they want, whatever the goal is. And I think, there's so much to basically discuss on it. I don't know. This is very big, and I wonder about all of the all the things that will change because of tools like this, right?
Like what? Well,
I mean,
go ahead. What's going to change? What's in your mind?
So it's not like something that's going to change, but the point is that more and more people will be able to run malicious attacks. Okay, we are lowering like the barrier to do something malicious. Okay, maybe before you had to write your own code, before you had to find your own vulnerabilities, right? And every time there's a new advance in technology in general, of course, more people can do more good things, but at the same time, more people can also do bad things, right? The fact is that we will actually see the same stuff, but more people will be able to do it, right?
Yeah, you make some good points there. So the first time I ever had GPT on my radar was when I started seeing Twitter flooded with, "Hey, I asked Chat to tell me how to exploit this system," right? And a lot of them were smart contracts on the blockchain, where you could steal hundreds of millions of dollars by finding a vulnerability in a smart contract or some sort of cryptocurrency. And yeah, it was just suddenly one day when ChatGPT 4 came out, I believe, or 3, I was just getting flooded with like, look at this. It's just creating all this malware for me. Or it wasn't creating the malware. It was you were tricking it to say, hey, I made this smart contract. Can you show me where there's any bugs in it? And it's like, oh yeah, sure, I'll help you with that. Like if you come in and say, hey, I want to develop some malware for this, I'll be like, no, I can't do that. But if you just tell it, no, I'm actually the one who created this and I just need help debugging it, then it's like, yeah, I gotcha. And so, yeah, there was a lot of uses of chat to find vulnerabilities right away. Like that was a huge flood just right out the gate of, hey, let's use it to help us, find bugs. And my thought, it was, okay, cool. Now just stick this thing right in your compiler, right in your code, assembly tool or whatever it is, your text editor, and say, hey, chat, keep an eye on me
In
as
Vim,
I'm
right?
typing this out, and find the bugs in it for me as I'm typing it out, and don't let me publish until it's bug free. Like we should be able to use these tools to our advantage in every way that they're being able to use as weapons as well. And what I'd like to see, if they're using it to craft phishing emails, I'd like to see, the phishing filter or the email filter, whether it's Microsoft 365 or whoever your email provider is, like say, hey, chat, look out for phishing emails. This is how you should look for them. And then they're like, yeah, we've just, by the way, Worm GPT has this whole training model on how to look, how to format phishing emails. We're going to use their same tool to detect phishing emails and look for it. And there are algorithms out there that look for things like, okay, is this a lookalike domain? Is it just one letter off from the domain we normally deal business with? Is this a domain that we've only seen that, that was registered 2 days ago or a month ago, and it's acting as if we're supposed to be, doing business with them? And there are lots of different indicators that you can look for on the defender side. And I sure hope we're using these tools to our advantage to defend our networks, because the attackers and adversaries absolutely are, to get that edge on their side.
You made a lot of good points in there. I'm just trying to, order them in my head. Like the first thing that, I'm thinking about is that, these chatbots are basically tools, right? They can be used for good or for bad, of course. And that's not all bad, is not all good. It's the same if we think about, I don't know, a computer in general or the internet. They are used for bad stuff, but also for good stuff. In this sense, you're right in saying that, we are seeing maybe criminals for the first time, or just for the first time publicly, or just clearly using this for malicious attacks. But at the same time, I know about, various companies that are starting to release their own, AI products that, still also enable companies and organizations to better defend themselves, right? There are really multiple examples there. And probably there will be some balance, right? Like attackers will have AI tools on their toolkit, but we will also AI on our toolkit. So we will still be balanced in that case. But the point is that every time there's a new technology like usable like this, we should be aware that on the other side, someone will exploit it in some way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And awareness for me is key, right? That today is not enough to just look at, okay, is this email written in perfect English? So if it's perfect, okay, this is not a phishing email. If you look on Google and run like how to identify a phishing email, one of the first thing is always, okay, look at the grammar, look if there are any typos, because that's a good indication that maybe who wrote the email was not a native, speaker. But with something like this, that's not the case anymore, right? We need to change our guidelines. We need to change our best practices, because we are aware that anyone can really write in a very poor language, write me a phishing email, and the tool will be, sending a perfect email that anyone can fault in, right? So we have to look at something else. We need to find something else to identify those kind of threats. Like that's my, my reasoning right now.
Yeah, I think we're going to see with a lot of these AI tools this sort of TikTok of, it comes into our lives as a value add. We like it. It's giving us so much better life because of it, right? We get to enjoy the fruits of it in a better way. But then the second shoe drops and it's like, oh, this was a mistake because somebody else is using this to for a bad reason. And I think that's going to happen with just so many of the AI tools. You get something that's like, well, you can create some image of someone else. That's cool. Now we can make our own video or whatever, where we don't even need a camera. But then it's like, well, now we've got deep fakes, and now you can use this to, exploit someone and say, look, I've got your, nude photos, and give me some money or else I'm going to publish it. Like, I don't have any nude photos, but okay. Oh, here you do have a nude photo of me. How the heck did you get that? Like, that's not even me, but it looks like you. And it's like, what do you even do in that situation? I don't know. There's just like this kind of thing of it. And yeah, with a lot of this AI, it you've always got to keep in mind who can use this for negative reasons. And there's going to always be some lunatics out there that are going to try to take over the world in an awful way and unleash, help. Like, I mean, is this a prompt that you can say of like, help me develop a plutonium bomb because I want to destroy this city, and just do step by step. What are all the ingredients I need? What are all the steps? And chat, does it do it? And can you trick it to do it? And I mean, if this thing wants to be so helpful to you, it's like a puppy that just wants your love and attention, and you to be there for it, and it'll do anything for you. And if you take those guardrails off, what is it capable of doing in the wrong hands? Anything, absolutely anything. And the more sophisticated it gets, once it becomes more intelligent, it's like, I could go on and on. Are we putting our moral philosopher hats on here? Are we even philosophers? Do we have the ability to talk about this?
Why not? I mean, no, you're perfectly right. So and we're still just talking about, the legit tool exploited for malicious purposes, right? Because there were different examples in the past where, again, people were tricking ChatGPT to show them, I don't know, how to create a bomb or something. And I also know that OpenAI, in that case, put in place a list of new security controls to prevent that. And that's, something that will be like that on and on, like forever. It's basically a new application and a new find the vulnerability for this application. On the other end, and that's the second part of the news, is why if I'm going to create my own ChatGPT without no controls at all, right? You don't have to find the bug. You don't have to find how to trick the tool in order to, show how to create the bomb. My tool was designed specifically to show you how to make bombs, right? Because that's its purpose. That's the scariest part, right? There's no one controlling it. There's no one putting efforts in making it more secure, even if there's no, no guarantee. In that case, there's a guarantee. This is going to work no matter what if you want to do malicious stuff, because that's done on purpose. That's scary. That's really scary. And I have just one question. Like, I was hoping that malicious actors could not do something like that, because at least they don't have access to the amount of data that is required, right, to train something like this. But apparently they did, if we have to believe them, of course. Someone else should, try this and make sure that it's really working as they market it. But if they have access to that amount of data, now that's scary, because it means that there's a I don't know, malicious OpenAI out there with the same or comparable databases used to train stuff like this.
Yeah, I mean, you can broaden your horizon even more of like, okay, well, maybe this AI thing's a mistake. Maybe we should put a halt on it. Well, okay, the good guys will, but China's going to try to be like, oh, cool, I'm glad you stopped working on that. We're going to totally like dominate the world with our AI because we're going to become like 1,000 times more smarter than you with our computer abilities, right? And so it's like, wait, why did we stop doing this? Now we can't defend against it. I mean, imagine creating an AI program that, no human in the world can beat in chess. And it's like, well, there's no way anyone could ever beat this. And then that's what you're dealing with, just, expand that to disinformation campaigns or, just convincing you this is what you need to buy. Like it's impossible to fight against that kind of intelligence as a human unless you have something on your side of the court to fight with you. Yeah. And it this is what we're creating. We're creating stuff that's smarter than us in every way to defeat us. I mean, it's one of the it's one of the uses of it.
Yeah, yeah, you can think about it like in this way, but it's like a never-ending story, right? We, as humans, we created malware, and then we created, anti-malwares. Are we creating phishing emails, and maybe we add anti-spam solutions, and so on and so forth? This will be really something that will happen again and again, and that's the same for AI tools, I believe, right? So is we are just I think we are just creating technology, and the first purpose is mostly to help humans, right? Now it's just on the human nature to find the bad aspects even in the good stuff. Again, it's an intrinsic vulnerability that we have, and there are some people that are going to exploit that stuff just because, again, either they need it or either they think it's worth it, right? And they don't really care about legality and ethical stuff. So I think, again, it's not the best way how to conclude the discussion, but just says that we will have always work to do in this sense, right?
Yeah, I mean,
uh,
you've got a similar tool that's been out for a while called the Social Engineering Toolkit, which it's a it's what like a lot of penetration testers do, and it was made by Dave Kennedy, a security who runs a security firm, Binary Defense, and it's like, here's how to craft a phishing email. Here's how to make a lookalike web page. So it looks like the Facebook login, but when you type in the password, it goes to you instead of Facebook, and then it redirects you to Facebook real quick. So like, well, wrong password, try again. As okay, and then when you get it right, you're actually in. And so there's all these really, I would say, sophisticated scraping tools to trick someone in social engineering situations. And it wasn't, I mean, it came in, and this is the weird thing, right? This worm GPT is on the dark net, and it's some forbidden knowledge kind of stuff. But Social Engineering Toolkit isn't. It's easily accessible on GitHub. It's widely used in the industry. It's just part of that. And so again, it's like, what are you using this for? Are you using it for educational purposes, or are you using it for criminal activity? And does that matter at all? Because if criminals are using it and it's for educational purposes, then you're really just adding into this pile of like, man, you're just causing a whole bunch of crime to be committed. It's a weird ethical world to navigate right now, and it puts me in deep thought like every day.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think like the other example that comes to my mind is stuff like adversary simulation tools. Like they are done by legit companies. They are used by penetration testers. But what happens when the stuff get leaked, right? And anyone can start to use it. So the purpose is everything, right? It's not the tool. The tool can be used even if that's like a create phishing email stuff. If that's used to increase awareness on an organization, that could be a good cause. But if it's used with other purposes, of course it changes everything. And again, I don't think there's really an answer to this kind of thoughts. It's just important, I think, to discuss about it, because that's how you find not really definitive solutions, but at least a way to keep with it, right? If we don't ever discuss about it, we just suffer from
Yeah.
the
The
results.
other thing it reminds me of is back in high school when somebody brought the book, The Anarchist Cookbook, to school. And it felt like forbidden
Okay.
knowledge. Like, we're not supposed to have this, right? This is how to make bombs. This is how to, diffuse police in a situation. I don't know. I never actually read it, but my friend had it. And I was like, why are you having that? Get away from me, right? Like, I don't want to be involved with this. But at the same time, I was like really curious, like, what's in there. And it was like, oh man, somebody published the wrong stuff, right? It felt like this isn't stuff that should be available for a high schooler to be able to just pick up and tote around in their backpack. But then the internet came and it just exploded all this knowledge. All this stuff that was forbidden or secret knowledge is no longer. You've got videos that were just figments of your imagination back when you were a kid that are like, yeah, we found this retro commercial that you remember from the 70s or 80s or wherever you grew up. And it's like, oh my gosh, how did someone save that? How is that even on the internet still? And it's amazing that everything is saved. And now that it's saved forever. And now that it's out there for anyone to see. And this just kind of takes that to the next level of like, here we go again of this is some forbidden knowledge. This is some sacred stuff. Nothing is forbidden anymore. Nothing is sacred. And let's just put all the data on the table that is out there. And yeah, I don't know. It gives me that feeling again of like, wait, this shouldn't be allowed. But looking back at the Anarchist Cookbook, it's kind of, yeah, these are pipe bombs. This is not like a nuclear bomb to explode. And the stuff that was crazy is like, it's kind of impossible to make because you don't have access to that. And so it kind of seems silly that Anarchist Cookbook was even like a forbidden knowledge nowadays, because it's just, I don't know, it's smaller compared to what's out there today, like bioweapons and stuff today. You know, it's just, it seems a much bigger thing.
Yeah, you can find pretty much anything today. You know, especially now if you have also the, say, the skills or the knowledge, even to access the dark web, it's even worse. But there's also, you know, so much in the clear web that maybe you don't even have to, right? If you know how to search, if you know what to search, and if you have AI tools that are helping you with that, maybe that's even worse. But yeah, I guess that again, this is a very big, I would say, yeah, kind of philosophical slash ethical, you know, discussion that will never end probably, and maybe there's also some good about it, right? It says a lot, I think, about, you know, not only this industry but again humans in general, and but still think that technology is a good thing, right? Even just because, you know, someone is going to use it for bad purposes, we should not really limit it or stop it or whatever, right?
Like it goes back to fire, right? Is fire good or bad? Well, it's destructive and can kill you, but it's fantastic because it gives us heat and cooks our food, and we
Light,
need it.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah,
Jack, I don't know what you think.
It's a weird world that we're walking into. It's very strange.
Absolutely, but that's also the you know, the the good thing about it. I think it's interesting, right? So if it's not interesting, there's no purpose. So
yeah, well, it's very exciting because, you know, if you think about, in my opinion, like we've gone through some major revolutions of just technology, and over time we've had the Industrial Revolution that just changed everything. And then there's the electrical age that just changed everything once again. And then there was the technology age, which is, you know, computers and such, which changed everything again. Like everybody was impacted by every one of these major revolutions. And I really think this AI shift is going to, you know, this AI introduction is really going to change everything as well. Everybody on the planet will be impacted by AI. And we're right here at the precipice of it, walking into it, not knowing what our future is going to be, because it could be catastrophic. They could take over the world and decide to make us slaves, and we don't know what our future is going to be. And here we go, excited to go into it. So I mean, if anything, it's not boring.
no, no, definitely. Boring is the last thing that you can say about this. And I, you know, I just think it's happening so quickly. Like, what's next? What can come after this? I can even, you know, think about it. Like, do we have any other kind of technology revolution that could be at the same level of this? I really have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna be expanding out of our planet, I think, would be eventual, right? So taking all the energy of the sun and harnessing it all, like what do we get, like a small 0.25% of like the energy that the sun is beating down on us. Like just imagine all the energy that it's given us, and we're harvesting it all, but then all the energy that the sun is just producing, just put it like a cup around the whole sun and like suck it all up. That is like another stage, right? And then being able to travel to other planets and other parts of the universe. The whole universe we have is totally untouched and untapped. So we have quite a bit more to go technologically wise. And that's exciting, that there's a lot of unexplored parts of the universe still.
Yeah. I see some good comments in there just to reach the end. So Davide, that again was another guest in a previous episode, saying that there will be always someone else that is thinking about things in a different way, right? And the continues of that is that, yeah, hope that he or she is a good guy, right?
Yeah.
When when they can find something like a different aspect of a new technology or just a new technology, someone else is suggesting what's next. Quantum computing, right? I think Google just announced a very new advancement in that kind of technology, and we know already that that's gonna uh, disrupt what we know about computing today. So that could definitely be something. What about if we combine quantum computing and AI? Like my mind is not enough to contain the thoughts.
Yeah, I think we might see also AI chips being produced, right? Where it just is right on board the chip, and you can put that chip
Yeah.
on whatever operating, whatever device you have, and then that'll be interesting as well. But today you can't really buy them. They're like the proof of concept is there, but it's not for sale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like something like the market name, that like the buzzword could be something like AI as a firmware or something. Like
Yeah, and
it's gonna be
I was listening to Mark Andreessen talking about, I think you produced an article recently about how just like it's not going to, like, AI is not going to be like this evil end of our lives kind of thing, and gave all these reasons why. And I really think he was tone deaf on the whole thing. But he he said like this is the reason why I think he's tone deaf. Like just one of the reasons, I guess, is he's like, it's all created by humans. We can pull the plug on it whenever it goes rogue. If it goes bad, we can just say, yeah, that's it, you're done. We've got to make some adjustments to it or whatever. And I'm just like, Mark, have you ever been a victim of a cyber attack? You can't just pull the plug on the computer. Like that's what the trope is on TV, where you see like some cowboy say, "What's going on?" And they're like, "I can't get the mainframe's down, and the hacker got into," and then he just walks over and pulls the plug out of the computer. Problem solved, haha, and walks out of the
no,
room.
that's not the case.
That's not how it works, dude. When AI is controlling the stock exchange, you can't unplug it and say, "Okay, the stock exchange is down until we get this AI sorted." Or the electrical grid or the satellites or like whatever we're integrating it into our world. It's not something you can pull the plug on. It's integrated, and like you can't say, oh, let's turn the internet off for the day until we get this sorted. No, dude, this is integrated into our lives in a very, very deep and meaningful way. It has to be
Like
and the other thing is, if you don't think this is intelligent, then you can pull the plug. But if it is intelligent, then you can't pull the plug on it. Like, make up your mind. Is this an intelligence? And do you give it respect? Like, this is a very intelligent thing we're dealing with. Because if you are giving it that respect, then it's like, yeah, we can't control it because it keeps dodging us. But if it's like, yeah, we're smarter than it, and we're always going to be more intelligent than it, then you're not giving it the respect that it actually deserves. It is more intelligent than us in some ways.
I really hope that we're not going to, start treating AI like a virus or something at some point. That's gonna be like the probably worst scenario. Something like that we
Oh
have
yeah.
really to get rid of.
No,
Hopefully,
I'm
that's
I'm
not
predicting
going
we'll
to be the
see
case.
some. Yeah, I do predict that we'll see some of the world's most devastating cyber attacks just because it's AI driven. Like, it's not even behind a computer, and it's not that AI went rogue, but somebody was just like, "Hey, make the world's worst cyber attack and make the world's worst worm." Like, here's Worm GPT, but it's kind of tongue in cheek. That's not actually making the world's worst worm. It's making phishing emails, but you know, why not make the world's craziest thing and then just destroy the whole world? Like, you could.
And maybe it's not really granted that it's going to be only cyber, right? At some point, I think that I really believe that we're going to make physical bodies for these AIs. Maybe we are doing that already. Like we're talking about robots that can even physically harm potentially someone.
Mm-hmm.
That's I don't know what's worse. I don't know, because probably they can do a mess even before that. But it definitely will be interesting to follow
Hmm.
this all of this development. Like, yeah, we will never get bored, for sure.
Absolutely. It's wild. It's a wild new world, and it's exciting to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I think that's the perfect last phrase for the episode. Jack, I really thank you very much, so much. It was definitely interesting and fun, which is the most interesting important thing. And
Yeah. Yeah.
hopefully
This was
you
fun
find
going
it
over the
as
news
well.
with you. I enjoyed it as well. Thanks for having me on.
Great. So thank you, Jack. Thank you for all the people who are still watching at this time. You are crazy, guys. It's like 1 hour and 45. You are totally crazy. And if you are that crazy and you really want to, see new episodes of this, please, hit that follow button. Maybe share this. Maybe rewatch this on YouTube, and maybe hit also the subscribe button in there. I see someone still commenting. Thank you very much, guys, to have been with us so far, and see you on the next episode. Thank you very much again, Jack. It was really a pleasure.
Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.